Heartbreak for Slovenia, who took Portugal all the way in this football match. But Portugal, I'd say beating them comprehensively on penalties, but they kind of beat themselves, didn't they? In many ways.
Yeah, they did thrash them on penalties.
They did,
which isn't something you hear very often, is it?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have picked that when Ronaldo missed his, would you?
No. Well, actually, you know what? That was the moment I was absolutely certain he was going to score in the shootout, I have to be honest.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
That's how it works with that guy, isn't it?
So it was completely goalless until the penalty shootout. Portugal winning 3-0 on penalties. Diogo Costa saved. That would have been a tenner for the Bucks, wouldn't it? Diogo Costa saving all three Slovenian penalties. He became the first goalkeeper ever to save 3 penalties in a single shootout at the Euros. Portugal, though, Andy, you have to say, had the opportunity to finish this one off, or certainly get themselves into a position where they could have finished this one off.
They did, but when you think of, we've talked extensively about the difference between Premier League football and then what England do at major tournaments. I think because you've got so many prominent Premier League players and ex-Premier League players in that Portugal team, they played in quite Premier League-y way. Like for the first hour, they looked as if, they're going to sweep them away at some point. They're aggressive, they're front foot, and then they hit the famous international 60-minute wall, and they definitely ran out of ideas and energy as it went on. Portugal and Slovenia looked more and more comfortable as the game went on.
They are really hard to play against, aren't they? We obviously discovered this ourselves.
Producer Finn with the coffee. We need it, mate. We need it. Thank you.
Behind the curtain there. So Slovenia are very hard to beat, aren't they? And we saw that ourselves. They've got I think they're unbeaten in a while, and obviously this will sort of continue that record despite them losing on penalties. And they did kind of restrict Portugal really, really well. But also, Pepe did such a good job of kind of shackling Benjamin Šeško that it's sort of kind of
until it got past his bedtime.
The levy had to.
To that one moment.
The levy had to break at some point, Jim.
Oh, didn't it? Just like I do think Pepe seems like less of a shithouse now,
right?
And it's like, is that where all his energy was going before? It's it's dialing that down a bit, giving him another 3 or 4 years in the tank.
Right. Is he kind of like leaning into the elder statesman kind of look? He's sort of realised, take one look in the mirror and sort of go, you got to book your ideas up.
Yeah.
You can't be skateboarding at 39, 41, whatever.
But that chance that he allowed Šeško to have late on that is going to haunt him, isn't it? Because it's a great save from the goalkeeper. He waits for the perfect moment. He times it really, really well. Like, great decision to stay on his feet and use his feet, etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, Šeško should do better with it.
It can be both, can't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm just gutted for him. It's a sort of running theme in this Euros for me that I'm seeing the moments like that and feeling this huge, painful surge of empathy for them. And that is one for Šeško as well.
Is it not a bit of Arsenal 25-26 come to me sort of thing?
Yeah, we'll make you feel better.
We'll be here for you.
Hopefully.
In 14 months.
Come to me, the only broken-hearted loser you'll ever meet. Arsenal, where people go to be sad. I don't know where that came from, so apologies, Arsenal fans. But to a less extent, Jim. A lot of the commentary we were talking at that point where, Šeško kind of is running in on goal and Pepe is, oh my God, creak. They sort of said that Pepe did his best to sort of put the player off and stuff, but did he? He had hands on him a bit.
Yeah, and that was the same with a chance before, wasn't it?
There was an earlier chance where
he kind of dragged it.
Right.
Šeško dragged it.
Okay.
And on the commentary they were saying, oh, that's really experienced defending. And you think he's absolutely been left for dead there. But and Šeško's just dragged it, and that's all that's happened.
And that was kind of like, obviously we are watching it on through one kind of lens, and obviously people around the world would be watching it on different television stations, but our one was very focused on the elder statesman of the Portugal team, and they could kind of do no wrong, even when they were doing very wrong.
Oh my God, yeah, it's like
anyone in particular you've got in mind?
There's a few standout names, to be honest, but look, I mean, we definitely saw the worst from CR7 in a tournament where he's been, you'd say, surprisingly handy. In this season he's had and where he's been playing recently.
He's looked, he's served the team very well, hasn't he? And the team has kind of the game plan they have isn't really hindered by Ronaldo, where it felt like that was the case in the World
previous
Cup
tournaments, right?
And before this game, it felt actually like, oh, you know what, they've figured out a way to get him in there and for it to not affect essentially the pace and the fluidity of the team. It didn't really feel like that yesterday, did it? And also a big problem that they have is the free kick thing. Now, obviously, he came close with a few of them. It felt ridiculous towards the end of it, but there was a point in the first half they had a free kick out wide, and it was crying for somebody to cross it, and he just spanks it wide. And it's like you're neutralising a really, really important way to score goals here by just allowing this.
But don't you think part of that like Oblak saving his penalty in extra time, was him going, "You not know who I am? I'm one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and you think repeatedly you can beat me from there when you never score for free kicks. How dare you?"
Well, that's what I mean. I think the long kind of the long used saw, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and again and thinking something different is going to happen each time. But Cristiano's free kick obsession just seems like he can whack them. And they are frequently on target, but they're never in the corners. They've never got the verve that they used to have 2017.
It's that Portsmouth one, isn't it? He's trying to recreate that every single time.
It feels like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
But the funniest thing would have been if Oblak just went, whiffed it into the net. Because the goal that he hits, I think it's the first time. How many has he scored at tournaments? One, I think. Yeah.
I think it might be 60 attempts.
Yeah.
It's certainly around that number.
And so imagine his 61st attempt, and he finally gets one in, and it's an absolute whiff from the goalkeeper. That would have been the funniest thing ever.
I mean, the actual penalty itself, I found really funny because it was very obviously a penalty to me. It was a body check.
Yeah.
But Martin Keown on the commentary in the UK here kept going, is it his leg? Is it his trailing leg? Is there contact from his left foot? It's like he body checked him, Martin.
Martin,
it's everything about the action. It's like everything that happened in that incident is why it's a penalty.
The defender body checked him whilst looking like a nightclub bouncer.
Exactly.
to make it even more obvious.
A lot of good characters on display for Portugal, actually. I think quite a lot of characters he wouldn't let in if it were a nightclub. I am sort of fascinated by this Portugal team with the characters they have in them. Obviously, you've got Narcissus himself up front.
Yes.
Pepe, the immortal Brazilian.
Yeah.
But Vitinha looks like a little con man to me.
Little con man.
He does, doesn't he?
That's not fair because you guys were saying I look like him.
Well, you look like a con man as well.
I look like a little con man, little confidence trickster.
There is something of the spiv about you both.
Yeah, I could turn up with a cravat at an old lady's door.
Yeah,
with a
absolutely.
clipboard. Yeah,
with some, wares in your jacket.
Exactly.
And the inside of your jacket.
I've just been recently
You're trying to turn the Euros into Oliver.
Exactly.
Very
Never before as a boy wanted more, some might say, yesterday, watching that football match. But, I mean, it was all about Cristiano Ronaldo, for obvious reasons. He's obviously a talismanic footballer for the Portugal team. But he has been a bit of a thorn in the side of Portugal for a little while as well. But
it's interesting you say that, Pete, because Karol Poborski, who quite famously upset Portugal by scoring the winner against them in the quarterfinals in Euro 96 at Villa Park. He's now an analyst for Czech TV, and before the first game, he got interviewed by a Portuguese newspaper and said, if there's one thing that's going to stop Portugal winning this tournament, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. And obviously he got a bit of blowback from that. But
this was that in microcosm, wasn't it?
Yeah,
this match is a perfect example of what he was talking about.
Exactly. This is what he was looking at. Now, I think the problem is with Cristiano Ronaldo, because he's A, such a great of the game, B, so old, and C, so famous. There is, I think 99% of people find it very, very difficult to analyse him accurately.
Yeah.
Either, as a lot of television pundits look at it, you can't criticise him because everything he's done in the game.
Yeah.
Or you're sitting there saying, well, he's a busted flush and he's just full of himself and it's all about him.
Somewhere in between, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think, look, what Jim was saying about how he's not been a break to what Portugal have been doing in this tournament, I would agree with that. The only reason you have the impression that he's a break on what Portugal are trying to do last night is because they don't really have any ideas in open play. So basically, the only idea they have is getting it to him.
Right.
So that makes him look like the problem. Whereas the problem is they're not doing the other stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you can make an argument, of course, that the role he has, does that stop Bruno Fernandes making runs into the box. Now, it doesn't stop Bruno Fernandes making good passes. And a lot of those passes and, that sort of early, sort of angular, almost Beckham-esque cross that he does, I think that's more useful in another game where the Slovenia defence aren't so, no, brilliant, by the way, aren't so good at gobbling it up. And I think in Biol, they had the outstanding defender of the game who was fantastic. But if you're going back to the drawing board, if you're Roberto Martinez, I think you do have to look about changing Ronaldo for other reasons, which I suspect we're going to come onto. But I think you're looking less about getting him into the game and what he's doing, and more how can we create from other sources. Because against a packed defence, they found the solutions against Czechia, but they didn't often look like finding them as the game went on here.
Yeah, I think I slightly disagree that they look like they don't have a lot of ideas. I think in the group stages, the first two games, obviously, they look quite dynamic.
No, I mean in this game.
Right, okay, specifically this game.
Specifically this game.
Fair enough. Also, I'd like to go back to your point about how it's difficult to analyse Ronaldo, and because people rarely talk about the game he's actually playing in. They talk about the past or the future. Is this the end for him? And obviously he misses that penalty. He cries and it looks really silly, which we'll come on to. But then he steps up and he scores that first penalty, and that sets the tone. And in the realm of things that actually did happen that affected the game, that's a massive moment there. And he has stepped up and he has delivered. So
do you think so? So the story of the game was very much he got bullied a bit, couldn't find the time to get shots away, took a million free kicks, missed a penalty, cried, then scored the first penalty in the shootout. I mean, it's as stories go in quite a thin game elsewhere. You'd probably say that we needed Cristiano Ronaldo.
He's certainly the protagonist, isn't it? There was also that moment in the first half where he rolled back the ears with all those kick-ups. It was functional as well. It wasn't showing off.
So, I mean, where do you see Portugal going from here? I mean, in between now and the next match, what do we do with Cristiano? Because it sounds like there's no appetite for dropping him, even though this performance has been all over the place.
Well, if there's one reason to drop him, is that you're like 100+ minutes in and he's 39.
Yeah.
I mean, if what has Gonzalo Ramos done? Unless he really did get injured by that steward at Dortmund, there's no reason not to sling him on. You've got a guy who is a top-class striker who's done it at major tournaments before and is in absolutely prime form. Well, maybe he's not in absolutely prime form now because he hasn't played for 4 weeks. I don't know. But I find that remarkable. And I think there's got to be a question over the way that Roberto Martinez managed Cristiano Ronaldo in this. Because after the penalty, he has lost it. People put up that meme of, Gary Lineker saying, have a word with Gaza after he gets booked in the semi-final against West Germany in Italia 90. But I know people meant that as a joke, but there's something in that.
He's been really over-emotional in other matches this tournament as well.
And I think elsewhere in this match, and like there are so many... I think when Portugal were finding it easier earlier in the game, he did receive some good deliveries and he mistimed his runs. And when you were talking about people analysing different games, they're like, oh, he's done well, he's got himself in the spot there. He got himself in spots that he should have been able to score from, and a better Ronaldo and maybe a more on it Ronaldo would have been able to score.
He had a good chance late on in the second half, actually, didn't he?
Yeah.
But again, Jan Block's a brilliant goalkeeper, so that does come into it.
But he didn't make him have to be a brilliant goalkeeper for a lot of it, did he?
Fair enough.
When you're seeing like Cristiano Ronaldo hitting the side netting in matches, you are like, you didn't used to see that very often. It was like always like top left or something like that as well.
The tears are interesting as well, aren't they? I think we need to give some time to the tears.
Give some time to the tears.
But a lot of people are saying, we've touched on it ourselves, like, is that the sign that his mentality isn't right and this might be a negative for the team? Euro 2016 was the only time we haven't seen him cry, and that's because they won it. Like, he always cries at tournaments.
He did cry.
Doesn't he? Like, he's an emotional person, and it is a little bit over the top, and it does look a bit sort of like telenovela and silly. But that is just who he is, isn't it? I think, like, it must be ridiculous if you're a teammate watching that, and he probably is starting to seem a bit like a caricature if you were all having to sort of mentally gather yourselves and kind of prepare to try and score a goal or get ready for penalties when you thought you might be able to win it there. It's not helpful. But at the same time, it's the other side of the coin, isn't it? That's how he can push himself to these limits.
You're right. I suppose it's like the Thiago Silva argument, isn't it? The fact that here's someone who's a formidable footballer, but was never much of a captain, even though he's frequently placed in a captaincy position. Because you remember in the 2014 World Cup, in the last 16, when Brazil have gone to penalties against Chile, like Thiago Silva is sat on the halfway line with his back to the shootout crying.
Yeah. Because the tears...
That's not great, is it?
But the tears aren't about the team, are they? The team,
that's the
tears are about the man, and that's the issue. Then the record, and that's the issue here. I think it's fair to say.
I guess that's the perception, isn't it? And on the other hand, people who are like properly on the Cristiano Ronaldo juice, and we know there are plenty out there.
They're mental.
We'll
let's say they're Swifties. They're terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. They turn up in the comments sometimes.
He's the problem.
Good
it's him.
Lord.
And they'll just go, oh, well, it proves he's a winner. It proves how much he wants it. It proves what a great player he is. It's not helpful to Portugal at that point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if is there a way that, because he's so famous, is there a way that Roberto Martinez can deal with it?
No,
because I think ideally what you would do is like do something beyond Diogo Dalot putting an arm around him and say, right, okay, yeah, maybe we need to take him out of the firing line. Or like, maybe we need to get Gonzalo Ramos on or whatever.
Take the firing line away from him.
Even keeping him on the pitch where he obviously does add value, it's the set pieces thing.
Did he after that?
It's
Did he after he missed the penalty?
Well, I mean, you're talking, halfway into extra time.
Yeah.
So I think, we've seen in the tournament that he's in that team on merit. I think, it's fair to say he is contributing. But the set pieces thing is taking away a huge element of the game for Portugal because it isn't working. It isn't working, and it seems to be the case that no one wants to say anything about it. You got a player like Bruno Fernandes in there, like just off the top of my head,
who would say something in any other situation, presumably to any other footballer he was with. He's not like backwards and coming forward.
No.
Their set pieces are such a huge part of grinding through tournaments, and every team has to. I mean, Portugal themselves did it last night. There's always come points where you have to make the most of them, and they're not able to utilise them because they're becoming this sort of egoistic sideshow.
But it's like Pete says, it's like Portugal in microcosm, really, isn't it? Because Martinez has managed to rotate the squad very well, and I think it's a really underrated thing of this tournament. The fact that you've got 26 players, and you're almost inevitably going to have probably 5 that are never going to play. And that is quite a difficult thing to manage, I think. Now, I think globally, Martinez has used that quite well. He's managed to make everyone feel involved. But it feels as if Ronaldo is untouchable again. That's certainly the perception. And really, Fernando Santos did the hard work for him at the last World Cup. He dropped Ronaldo for a game that mattered, and his replacement was really good.
And where's Fernando Santos now?
If he'd have had that...
Multiple sackings. It's a conspiracy.
Martinez is terrified.
If he'd have had that performance in the first match, you imagine these kind of situations would, they would have flown through that game, you would imagine, with the talent they've got on shore. I very much enjoyed Roberto Martinez said the team played really well in the post-match, which is interesting. I don't know if he was talking about Portugal. He could have been talking about anyone. He's talking about the Mighty Ducks from 1992's film The Mighty Ducks.
Slovenia are really hard to play against, though.
Yeah.
Which is why England are going to win the Euros.
They'll studge it. They're out now, I suppose. My highlight of the game was obviously somebody in the crowd with a little T-shirt they'd made about Cristiano Ronaldo saying, "I've been a fan of you for 20 years, but not anymore."
Yeah, he was Slovenian though, wasn't he?
I thought he was a Portugal fan.
No, I don't think he was
absolutely gone off the boil.
I don't think he was breaking up with him.
That would be amazing.
That would have been better, wouldn't it?
I don't think you're right, but it would have been a lot better if that had been the case.
That's a shame.
I mean, presumably the one Portugal fan who thinks that is in the BBC's caption department.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So the BBC captioned Cristiano Ronaldo's penalty misses Cristiano Ronaldo on the replay. Bilal Zafar on Twitter would be absolutely loving that. That's his favourite
absolutely. Who's a great follow, by the way. A few people have been really, really sort of real sticks in the mud about it. Like, this is really unprofessional from the national broadcaster, blah, blah, blah. It's like, the BBC always do puns
They
like
always
that,
do
just because they've
silliness.
half used a pre-existing one.
Well, John Terry sort of took a picture on Instagram of it and said, BBC, this is a disgrace. Like, sit this one out, mate.
Yeah.
Sit this one out.
Don't pull on that thread.
And I know, like, we're the same age as JT, and, like, we all grew up with the BBC being very stoic, very sort of, like, staid broadcasting, just the facts, followed up by some 70s racist manager resisting the urge to say something racist and, just bone dry commentators. I didn't mind it, but I do think I didn't like that it's unoriginal, if you know what I mean. Like, they're leaning into a
trope, an
internet trope, which I think
would it have been funnier if it had been delivered by a character like Moira Stewart or Peter Sissons or someone like that?
It would have been better, yeah. The more formal, the better.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
If they just all started calling him that and not referencing it in any way. Another highlight for me of the game was when some flares were let off in the stadium.
Oh,
but because there's a roof on it, like, there was sort of nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
They just sort of hotboxed it for a bit.
Everything just went blue rinse, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was
it did.
amazing. And I like the fact that they were all let off at the same time. That must have been pre-planned, surely. Because there was too much smoke for just one flare or two flares.
Do you think that explains all the extra emotion in the game?
I did expect it just to be really, really smoky. You lose track of what's going on, and then you just see Ronaldo running out of the net, ball in hand. Oh, he scored a secret one
again. Oh, for crying out loud. He's throwing the ball in the net.
Will not be defeated.
Yeah. Well, so there we are. Portugal are through and Slovenia are out. And they are going to continue to, well, if Ronaldo's still leading the line, stink up matches, you would imagine. By the way, if you want to find out more about Italy's exit to Switzerland, who will, of course, be playing England on Saturday, then catch this morning's special On the Continent drop on the Football Ramble feed. I listened this morning. I listened to as much as I could this morning before I got in. Dotton and Andy were joined by Nicky Bandini, and we thought they'd chat about Italy and what went wrong for them this tournament. It was just simply too good to miss. So check it out. For the full episode, you can, of course, search On the Continent in your podcast app as well. Have a listen. Did Nicky at any point say the word wank, which I heard her say on a different podcast? In the post-match, the manager, I think, did name check the word masturbation.
That was Spalletti. He told Nicky caveated it with, obviously certain colloquial phrases we can't translate directly. But Spalletti said to the journalist, "You need to do 15 years more of wanking before you can." Catch up to me. It's a weird thing.
That
is a weird thing to say. But and very Ramble, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
later rung the journalist to apologise. I mean, we'd never do that, would we?
No, God, no. Never apologise.
We'd never apologise to you.
No. All right, coming up next, we've got France's win against Belgium and what we've got to look forward to in England's next fixture and also today in the Euros.
Good morning, England! You tell us something your mum doesn't know. Yeah.
Andy, tell us something your mum doesn't know.
Ivan Toney should start.
Ivan Toney should start. Do you actually genuinely believe that? Because we've not had your reaction, obviously, for the England match on the podcast. Any brief thoughts?
It happened and now it's over. is my reaction to it. Blimey. I thought the guys resumed it very, very well yesterday. It was quite an exhausting experience, wasn't it?
I sort of had to listen to the ramble to make sense of my own thoughts.
Yes,
and I was like, God,
I understand that.
Podcasts like that are quite important, aren't they? Because I was just like, I need to hear someone else's opinion, who are like me, to make sense of what. Yeah, to either disagree or agree.
That's it. You're totally right, because I think at moments like that, you realise that football is this incredible collective force, this collective experience that actually, in our own little brain boxes, we all experience and perceiving like really quite different ways. Yeah. So hearing what everyone had to say on it was absolutely fascinating.
There's also nothing like an international tournament game in terms of how you experience that. I think it's very different from your club, even in knockout competitions.
Well, the collective is stronger, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's a lot more microcosmic, and you're also. I can only speak for myself here, but when England are really boring, as they sometimes are and have been in this tournament, I try to think, am I just being hypercritical here? Am I just being too negative? And then you see like the France-Belgium game, where it's actually not the most amazing game, but France did make a lot of chances. And I'm thinking, that's how we're not even making the chances. And it's
a
little bit of that, really.
That's why the Jude Bellingham goal is so extraordinary. Not just because of the timing, not just because of the style with which he scored it, which is obviously very Jude Bellingham, but it's like it's been transplanted from a different match.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't imagine it arriving at that point. It's not just
Or him being unmarked as well. to
yeah,
a certain
maybe.
extent.
I agree. I mean, I think it's not just that you didn't dare to believe that England could get out of it. It's just that it didn't really belong in that moment at that time.
Okay, well, elsewhere we've got France 1, Belgium 0. Belgium been taken out by France. I mean, taken out round the back of the old farm and pumped in the head. The goal took a big deflection off 37-year-old and feeling every second of it, Jan Vertonghen. France still haven't scored a goal in open play with 2 own goals and a penalty so far.
Yeah. This is what happened when you have loads of shots. It's like pinball, isn't it?
Well, they're a fan of Le Pen at home and away as well, you see? Terrible.
Very good.
Good. Très bien. Yeah. I don't know. What? What's wrong? Try to put a bit of language. Pourquoi ils sont mauvais, Andy? France? Why are France bad? Even though they're winning matches, Andy, tell us.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Like that perception that only England fans and the England media complain about the style of how something's. I mean, that is patently not true. let me tell you at the moment.
There were bright spots for France, though. I thought Theo Hernandez was brilliant. He had a fantastic game.
Maybe because at the moment he's like, you were talking about before the tournament, Pete, about Antoine Griezmann looking like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse at the moment. I think Theo Hernandez has got strong Sons of Anarchy energy to it.
Nice.
At the moment, you definitely wouldn't mess with him, would you? I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I cannot envision any sort of scenario where I would be messing with Theo Hernandez.
His name should be like Rusty or something.
But funnily enough, he did play well, but it kind of underlines one of France's major problems at the moment, in that you think of him as like this wild horse who's completely off the leash, but he's so focused on defending, he doesn't want to go down the outside at the moment at all. I mean, their best attacker was Jules Koundé, who's basically a centre-back playing at right back.
It's all the rage now,
so
isn't it?
It really is. So it's a huge problem for them. Didier Deschamps has fiddled about with the attacking system to try and get them to create more and try and get the attacking players in the spots that they should be. But he created this system which has basically removed Antoine Griezmann from the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a good defensive job, and everything about France, they do a good defensive job. But by not taking their chances, and I think this was their worst performance of the tournament so far. They didn't really create as much as they have in the previous 3 games, which if they'd have taken their chances, they would have won comfortably, and maybe we'd be having a different discussion about them.
They had 17 shots though, Andy. I mean, you'd love that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But Cohen Casteels didn't make a lot of difficult saves, did he?
No.
It was only 2 on target.
On 3 occasions, they worked the ball to Aurélien Tchouameni to have a pop from distance. It's like, that's quite a low percentage chance.
Yeah,
it's clearly a deliberate play.
A lot of those, like we know Tchouameni can score. Oh my goodness, we know Tchouameni can score from distance. But if you're having him have 5-6 shots from 20 yards, if you're Belgium, you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Just like if you've got Kylian Mbappe on the left-hand side, 40 yards from goal.
But you can't see anything.
Exactly. Can't even see the goal from there. I think if you're Belgium, you're pleased with that, because of course he can pick it up in that situation and dribble around a couple of players at great speed. But he has to do that to even get to the penalty box, let alone create a chance.
Yeah, Mbappe's a funny one, isn't he?
They have a lot to fix.
He can be really eye-catching. Just I think because of because of the way he moves.
Yeah.
Like he really, really stands out. Just he has a sort of elegance to his play, even if he's not having the best game. I think with France though, there's an argument that we're all desperately trying to hope to be able to make for England, and is a lot stronger with France, that they look like they're on the verge of clicking. That it's not going to take a lot for them to actually suddenly be really effective, because they're doing all the right things. They're ploughing the right furrows. They are sort of, they're trying to score goals. Things are just not quite right at the moment. But I think there's a stronger argument for France to really click and show the best of themselves than there is for really any other team in the tournament. But obviously, aside from Spain, who are clicking all over the shop, castanets aplenty.
I think there was in the group stage. I think this is quite a concerning performance, I think.
But I mean,
it's a real issue for them.
But speaking of clicking, Kylian Mbappe does feel like he's got the handbrake on at the moment with that mask. Like he has not been enjoying wearing it. He says it's an absolute horror. You saw me change 5 masks. It was more than that. It's pain. It limits your vision. The sweat gets trapped. Did he not try to get that one from the Polish goalkeeper? That would have been better.
Yeah, he talked about it being like virtual reality, didn't he?
Oh, like wearing the old headsets, right?
It's a proper level of that, though, isn't it? You got probably the best player at the tournament taken down whatever percentage because of that. It's interesting.
He said also it makes me a target. Like people are deliberately shoving him in the face.
But if you know that you've got kind of like a busted nose, I mean, you need that protection because people are going to be doing the old elbow, aren't they?
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. There's so much pressure on him at the moment because in a game like that, because they're creating little of genuine quality, it's like because he's that catch-all defensive solution in a way that, say, Erling Haaland isn't. Say, if we're talking about some of the highest profile, 20-something footballers in the world, and maybe some of the best footballers in the world, Haaland, you have to create for him. With Mbappe, and I said, like, he's less dangerous when he's 40 yards out on the left wing. But he still can get himself into a position where he's dangerous, which is not the case necessarily with other players.
Is that just about awareness, though, with Mbappe? Because obviously it does seem kind of barbaric that we're having to sort of, in 2024, deal with these big old masks. I guess it's an injury that doesn't happen very often, so the technology probably hasn't been kind of researched. But, like, what's wrong with, like, just something a bit more, like a sake cup with string, like kind of over the nose or
Robbie
something?
Fowler's little nose sticker.
Or just pop the nose off for the tournament. Just take, I mean, because we don't really, he doesn't wear glasses, he doesn't need the bridge of his nose, just get rid of it. The other Cillian Murphy, he's not got one. He's got a tiny little piggy nose, hasn't he? So, yeah.
Does he? I'm too distracted by his beautiful eyes, to be honest.
Beautiful eyes, exactly. Yeah, it's a good distraction. So, I mean, France are going to be facing Portugal next on Friday.
Which is limbering up to be a cracker.
Exactly. So they get through for that. But where did Belgium go from here? I think I went in the tournament and I was kind of backing them like a bloody Albania to have a decent one simply because the kind of the egos had gone. The kind of the big personalities had kind of been moved on a little bit.
Yeah.
And they still had quality in their side. But it's not been a great tournament for them, has it?
No, it's not. Although I would say no pain, no gain is definitely better than World Cup 2022. And there's such a miserable feeling around the Belgian national team at the moment. Obviously, the fans aren't happy.
De Bruyne's in it.
Yeah,
do you know, like in sci-fi where somebody just drops out of a big like jelly kind of cocoon? They get birthed out of like a big jelly, and they're in stasis, and then they're on the floor, and then they become alive.
Yes,
I think. He doesn't go on holiday. He just clambers into there. His ideal thing is stasis. He doesn't like living. He doesn't like not being here. He just wants to live in that middle space where he's not asked to do anything at all. Life is pain for De Bruyne. And I think that I just think he'd be happier just not doing anything.
Well, Thiago Silva.
Or doing everything. I don't know.
Goes into a chamber, doesn't he, after games? A lot of the older players do it as part of their recovery. So maybe De Bruyne is just moving the technology on.
Just fill a chamber full of jelly.
Full of lovely jelly.
So just float about.
It is a funny thing, isn't it? Because the way it was sold before the tournament is Domenico Tedesco was doing the right thing, not picking Thibaut Courtois, because obviously they had that huge fallout. There was the sense that some of the Belgian players and a lot of the Belgian public, even though Courtois is arguably the best goalkeeper in the world, were happy not to have him there just because he's such a pain. Is it reaching that point with De Bruyne? It does bring the whole mood of it down.
I don't know. I think what you guys are referring to is his slight spikiness in the post match, right?
Slight?
But he was
it's pretty constant, though, isn't it? And
the question he was asked, though.
If he's not, I always bring it back to him complaining about playing Wales all the time. It's just like it's like a player at his level should not be worrying about. Just throw out some platitudes. I don't want to see a sad De Bruyne.
Is it? Are we saying he's strawberry blonde Roy Keane? Basically, and everything. I guess that must be a thing when you come from Manchester City, where every whim is catered for.
Yeah.
And of course, you have the best players in the world around you and the best functioning football operation.
You win a lot
in the world around you, and you win a lot.
Steven Gerrard on commercial flights in America. I'm not having it. I want private jets on now.
So the question that was put to De Bruyne though was, how does it feel for the golden generation not to have made a final? And it's like, it's essentially going, why are you shit? Like,
Yeah.
it's a stupid question.
Well, his answer was stupid though, where he went, "Oh, what about Spain? What about Germany? Germany won a World Cup. What about France? France won a World Cup." It's like, come on, man. And he didn't even stay around for the comeback, did he?
Right. The comeback as in...
Right, he's just like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he's out there. Yeah, he's just completely walked out.
And he whatevered it and walked off, didn't he?
Dear.
But
Well,
I don't know. I mean, I think it is easy to miss, as I said before, that like they were shambles at the 2022 World Cup, and now they're past Hazard, they're past Toby Alderweireld. They've got Witsel in the squad, but you can't really play him because he's not really a midfielder anymore. And they are getting into those younger players who are, who knows whether they'll ever be as good as that level. You look at the promising ones like Arteat, you look at Onana. I'm not going to do his first name just in case it gets offended. But
we'll just use his name and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, he probably will be.
even my name.
He probably will be. But I think you look at that and you think, well, why would they be the finished article yet? Considering that there are a number of issues, I think it's easy to say, oh well, that they're not being that adventurous. But I think the way they stuck together, they made it difficult for France. They could have snatched that on another day. They created a few little chances.
De Bruyne had that chance late on, didn't he? Which I think
Lukaku as well,
on reflection was a lot harder than it seemed.
Yeah,
but you expect a lot from him in that position, I suppose.
Agreed. And I think at that point, goals do define games. We've got to admit that. And if one of those had gone in, it's like the perfect hold up, and we're having a different conversation. Now, are they sexy Belgium? No. But I think considering like where they were like a year and a half ago, I don't think this is an unacceptable way to go
It's
out.
a progression, right? Okay. And again, you are playing France, who are tipped to be right there by the end. Also tipped to be right there by the end is England, inexplicably. God knows why. But UEFA are investigating the talismanic Jude Bellingham for all of the crotch grabbing he did at the weekend. Just grabbing his crotch. And,
He only threatened to grab the crotch. He didn't actually grab the crotch.
That's a good point,
crotch.
actually, yeah.
It's not grabbing anyone else's crotch.
It's a bit D-Generation X. It's a bit,
It is,
a bit like Attitude Era WrestleMania, isn't it, really?
Suck it, UEFA.
Suck it, UEFA. I mean, I would say, are they trying to crack down because what they saw at the World Cup final with a certain goalkeeper, what he got up to? Is this kind of just trying to sort of stop this in the group stages / the knockouts?
I think you could be onto something here because seeing as basically every decision on the future of football is extended willy waving between FIFA and UEFA.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the best phrase in this situation.
No, but maybe it is. Maybe that's the problem. Only we will wave the willies.
It's like we're going to crack down on this, region.
Yeah, I mean this general region because it wasn't.
I'm not talking about Europe when I'm talking about region.
No,
I mean it felt very much like it was a miming of a head rather than anything about the. It felt like a miming of a sex act rather than hey everyone look at my willy. Is that fair?
Who cares what it was? Stop being such prudes, UEFA.
But if we are going to make a difference, I mean, let's be honest. Bellingham's referring to the balls. Martinez is referring clearly to the penis,
Right.
So there is a difference.
Is it taking a turn this tournament? It's just all got a bit toilety,
Hasn't it just?
Well, dear Jude could be banned, suspended.
I mean, that would be ludicrous, wouldn't it?
It would be funny. Because people would lose their absolute love. But Declan Rice, on the other hand, he managed to get out of any trouble for appearing to call the Slovakian manager, rather, a bald cunt. So that's strong words from Ricey baby. But the burden of proof very much underpinning the law of the land there. The Dutch have lost each of their last 3 knockout matches at the Euros, and they are going to be taking on Romania this afternoon. If they lose today, they become just the second side ever to lose 4 in a row.
It's funny because I think in many situations we'd be talking about this as a hypothetical, but it does feel as if the
Feels like it's on,
Netherlands...
doesn't it? Feels on.
It feels as if the Netherlands are on the brink of a very Dutch moment.
Right,
doesn't
okay.
it?
Yeah. That's a euphemism for something else.
Yeah.
Yes.
That we talked about before.
We were hoping for this from France, really, weren't we? But
yeah.
it's going to be one of them, apparently. And it's always going to be the Dutch from now on.
Yeah. I mean, Virgil van Dijk obviously came in for a lot of stick after the defeat to Austria. Marco van Basten, Rafael van der Vaart and Ronald de Boer all had a go at him. Are we sort of seeing this in our own squad as well? Just legendary footballers after long seasons being taken apart by professionals who possibly should know better.
Again,
who've never played this amount of football.
It's the microcosmic nature
of
a national tournament again, where every single thing is massively analysed on TV directly after it's happened, without a lot of time to sort of let it settle.
Yeah.
Do you think
and you know what? At the same time, if Van Dijk has had like an okay performance, it is their job to say that. So it's just part and parcel of it, isn't it? It's the same with England. There's no getting away from it.
It is, and you think it could be maybe underlined to the England players who've been unhappy about that. And, you know, the players from every country have been unhappy about the media back home at some point. I mean, Ferran Torres went on a massive rant about how, well, none of you thought Spain were going to do well before this tournament, etc., etc., as I was saying on the Ramble the other week. But I just wonder if, like, Declan Rice and Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham could be made to look at this. And it's like, Rafael van der Vaart is like 40% ruder than anyone who's had a comment on any of you. I think what Virgil van Dijk needs is one of Memphis's headbands, because, you know, obviously it's got the golden number 10 on the front, and on the back it says simply, "Who cares?"
That's nice.
So maybe he could get one of those, because he must have a spare. And Van Dijk could turn it around so the "Who cares" is at the front.
Austria taking on Turkey elsewhere as well, heading for Leipzig. Obviously, very familiar territory for Ralf Rangnick.
Oh,
he
really?
turned 66 on Saturday.
I thought they were doing this in Berghain. It's absolutely the hipster choice, isn't
Banging,
it, this one?
absolutely banging.
Even if you've got a ticket, you're not necessarily getting in.
You got to dress the right way.
The bouncers are going to check you out.
Yeah.
It's like a Berlin nightclub.
Well,
Sorry, Specs, you're not coming in.
Get out. Well, it was his birthday at the weekend. He was delivered a cake by David Alaba with a signed poster from the squad. Exactly what he wanted. You do not want to see. I would say with this cake being delivered by Alaba, big fireworks coming off the top of it. You know, you do not want a celebrated footballer getting one in the eye.
If you go back, like probably about 4 or 5 days, David Alaba was presented with a cake by Marko Arnautovic, similarly with a firework coming out of it. And I have to say, whatever Rangnick experienced, I mean, I think Alaba's quite a safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
If you're Alaba, like last week, and you've got Arnautovic coming towards you with a firework on a plate, you're thinking, I don't fancy this.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd quite trust Alaba around the squad.
Yeah.
Like, there's a snake in the canteen. Don't worry, David will get it. He'll sort it out. He'll be fine.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.